Welcome back everyone. I feel like smoking a brisket, so in this video I'm going to show you my favourite brisket smoking method from start to finish. Alright, so to get started we need to get a fire going. So we'll open our firebox lid, take our charcoal basket out, we'll open up the side door as well, get a couple of fire lighters going, we'll get our charcoal chimney on top and fill that up with some briquettes. And now we've got about 15 minutes before they'll be ready, so we'll use that time to trim and season this brisket. Alright, so here's our brisket, nothing fancy at all. We've got the flat on this side and the point end on this side. I'm going to start by turning it over and we'll get this trimmed up. I just want to take off any excess fat, seal the skin, and I'll also trim up any thin edges. Now I'm going to put any fatty pieces in this tray here as we'll render that down during the cook, and we'll also use that rendered fat later on in the cook as well. And then any leaner sort of trimmings I'll keep separate as well, and I'll mince that up later. Alright, now I'm happy with that underside. We'll get started on the top. I'm just going to take this top flap off. And I want to leave a nice coverage of fat on this flat side as it's much leaner. I'm happy to trim down the point end a little bit more, but anything that's over sort of 2 to 3 mil, I'll trim down. Alright, so I'm happy with this brisket, and as you can see, I've trimmed it in a way that both ends are as even as possible. The more evenly you can trim the brisket, the more even it's going to cook. And I've also tried to trim it in a way that it's nice and aerodynamic. That way any juices will just run off the brisket instead of pooling up in sections. And now I reckon this is ready to season up. Alright, and now to season our brisket, I'm just going to give it a light coat in some yellow mustard to help our rubs stick to the meat. Then I'm just going to give this brisket a base coat in steak shooter. If you've got another favourite barbecue rub, feel free to use that, or a 50-50 mix by weight of kosher salt and cracked black pepper. Always works well too. Don't forget to season the edges. And then we'll top it off with my beef bounce rub. And we'll press that rub in, make sure it adheres nicely. Get them edges. Alright, now our brisket's ready to go. I reckon these briquettes will be ready too. Alright, so these briquettes are very much ready. So we'll take them out for a moment. We'll get our charcoal basket back in. And then I'll dump these briquettes in. And then I'll get a log split on. I'll leave these doors open until that log split catches fire nicely. Alright, and now that log's burning nicely. We'll shut our lid. We'll get our next log preheating on the firebox. I'm going to use some pecan next. We'll open our chimney. We'll leave our side firebox door open for now, and we'll give our barbecue 5 to 10 minutes just to settle down and stabilise. Alright, now our temperatures have settled down. We've got some nice clean smoke. We can get this brisket on. So I will be placing the thicker, fattier point end towards the fire. And then I'll get our tray of beef fat just here, and that'll render down throughout the cook. And then we can shut this lid, and I'll be looking to run this cook at around the 275 to 300 Fahrenheit or 135 to 150 Celsius. All right, so for the first 60 to 90 minutes of this cook, we don't really need to do much else apart from maintaining a nice, clean, steady burning fire. Then after that first 60 to 90 minutes, we can check on our brisket. If it's looking a bit dry, I'll give it a spritz. But for now, I'll let this brisket smoke away and we'll check back once we're a bit further into this cook. All right, we are a bit over 3 hours into this cook. We've spritzed our brisket a couple of times. We'll quickly give it another spritz now. And it looks like we have rendered all the fat we can out of those off-trim pieces. So we'll take that out, let it cool down to room temperature until we're ready to use it when we wrap this brisket later on. And I just want this bark to move on a little bit more before we go to the next stage of this cook. So we'll close our lid and let this brisket keep cooking away. All right, we are about 5.5 hours in now. Have a look at that bark. That is incredible. There's just one little area here where some juices have been pooling up, but that's okay because that bark will continue to develop as we boat this brisket. So I'm just going to check the internal. Both ends are very, very similar. We've got 177 Fahrenheit in the flat, and around 190-ish in the point. So I might boat this brisket and then we'll rotate the flat around to the side where the fire is. So we will get this out. And then we've got 2 layers of good quality foil here. We'll lay our brisket down on that. Fold all these edges up around it. And then I've strained that rendered fat we saved from before. I'm just going to pour that all over this brisket. And now we'll get it back in the smoker. I might even just prop the brisket up with a little ball of foil so the juices run off of that place that they're pulling up, just so that bark can develop there. And then we'll shut this lid. I reckon this brisket will take another 1.5 to 2 hours until it's probing tender, so we'll come back once we've hit that stage. All right, I reckon we're about 7.5 hours total into this cook now. This brisket should pretty much be done. That point end is feeling amazing. That's probing around the 205 Fahrenheit or 96 degrees Celsius internal. That flat is feeling nice as well. All right, that's feeling nice all over. So what I'm going to do is just get a tray ready. And then we'll pick our brisket up, put it in the tray like so, and bring it over to our cutting board. All right, and all I'm going to do now is take that little ball of foil out, and then I'm going to let this sit out for about 10 minutes just to stop that cooking process. Then I'm going to wrap it up and let it rest. All right, and now our brisket has cooled off for a moment. I'm going to get it on some fresh foil, pour over all of those juices from the tray. Now we'll wrap it up nice and tight, and then we'll get it into a good esky to rest. All right, so in the esky, especially a good one like this, that brisket is going to stay at a nice eating temperature for 2 to 6 hours. If you want to get a little bit longer out of it, you can get an old towel and that'll act as a bit of extra insulation and put that on top of the foil. Or if you wanted it to last for 12 to 24 hours, you can always hold it in the oven at 70 degrees until you're ready to serve it. So I'm going to let this brisket rest for a couple of hours now, and we'll come back once we're ready to slice it open. All right, our brisket's had a good rest. Time to cut it open. That looks absolutely perfect. All right, so we've got the point end here. I'll put that aside for now. This flat side, I'm just going to continue slicing the way we cut it in half. We can also see that fat has rendered down nicely. Pulls apart with ease. That'll be our taste test piece. And now we've got our point end piece. We can see the muscle runs around here. So I'm going to start slicing this way. And that's where you get those beautiful fatty point slices from. And then once you start running out of point muscle, I'll just knock that bit off there. That's mostly fat in there. We can save that top bit of meat in there. Put that aside. That's mainly fat. And then we can just slice this leftover piece the same way as we were slicing the flat before. Now we can taste. All right, the bark on that is just insane. That's a bloody good brisket. Well, there you have it. There's my favorite way to smoke a brisket. That was no fancy brisket. That was just a standard grass-fed brisket. So as you can see, you don't need any fancy Wagyu or anything with a high marble score to produce a great result. So if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to ask them in the comments below. Shout out to all my YouTube members. I hope you enjoyed the early access to this video and all the other perks you get. If you're interested in becoming a member, there's a link down in the description below for you to check out. But for now, that's the end of the video. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.